topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's edition of the Security Squawk podcast, the longest running cybersecurity podcast on the internet.
We made it.
We made it. That's hilarious.
The tech guys were all, well, except for Randy, he's on the Mac, but the tech guys were all having issues.
Yes, I am having massive technical issues today, among other issues. The universe is just against me today, and I'm pushing a rope. If you ever pushed a rope, it's not fun. So, all right, welcome to the show. Real quick, going to talk about a big topic of controversy in our world, which is ransomware payments. Should you pay them? Should you not pay them? We're going to get into probably about a 20-minute discussion, deep dive discussion on the various aspects of ransomware payments and our experience with them, and answer that question. Should businesses consider it? Is it something that should be off the table for businesses? I shared a story with you guys in the green room about a business who didn't like our approach to some tabletop exercises because we were introducing the idea of maybe them needing to pay the ransom. So we'll get into it. Like, what are the legal ramifications of paying the ransom and why you might not want to do it? What are the moral dilemmas that are created with paying ransomware or not paying ransomware? And we'll talk about a lot of different things that'll give you a lot of different insights on the challenges businesses face once they get hit with ransomware and whether or not they need to make that large payment to a bunch of thugs. But before we get into that discussion, remember we do this show for free, but your time's running out because we have offers on the table to take money and we might do it. So if you don't share the show and you don't help us grow this show by sharing this with your friends and family, wherever you're watching us, listening to us, consuming us on whatever platform that is, there's a way that you can help us out, whether that's leaving a review, giving us a 5-star review on a podcasting platform, or sharing our stuff out on the social media platforms that we're on. YouTube, the like, subscribe, all those good things help us get the word out, which is why we do this. It's to educate people. But if you guys don't help us grow the show, we're just going to take money from the people that want to give it to us. They're like throwing money at us right now, guys. And I'm just like, nah, we're good. So that's it. Guys, want to add anything to that?
No.
All good?
No, let's jump in.
Yeah, let's get into the topic of ransomware payments. And wow, why would a company want to even think about paying ransomware? So the reason we're talking about ransomware payments and the dilemma on whether to pay or not pay the ransomware is the CISA director has come out and basically said in an article that paying ransomware or putting the idea of banning ransomware payments or having our government ban ransomware payments, which it's interesting that she even talked about this because we will talk about it, but there already is bans on certain ransomware payments. It's not blanket. And I think that's what the question was. Should there be blanket ransomware payments? And she's come out and basically said, we can't do it. Right. So we're going to talk about that whole answer, why that's critical to businesses. And quite frankly, it only reinforces what I've been harping about on this show and my own YouTube channel for a long time now. And that's businesses are not prepared for this shit. And we need ransomware payments to be a thing that helps us get back into business. Because too many businesses would just go out like we talk about businesses going out of business on a ransomware attack. And that's in the context of they recover, but all the damage done by the attack, loss of trust, loss of clients, leads to them to dying a long, slow death. Look, if you take away ransomware payments, and that's the only way a company can get back, well, the long, slow death has now just become a light switch, right? Because as soon as that ransomware payment, if you realize you're in a ransomware event and the only option you have to get your business back up and running is to pay the ransom and you have no other option, and that option's just been taken away by the government, you're out of business. And the government doesn't want to be playing that game, and they know that that's what's at risk right now. So, guys, why should a company pay a ransom?
You want us to just maybe give a few ideas why it's good, why it's not good, or maybe some instances where you may want to, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the question came up. A prominent person in our government, the head of the cybersecurity wing, has come out and said that this will never happen, at least in the foreseeable future. So a lot of business owners like I said, we had a client who challenged us on the fact that we were introducing the idea that they might consider paying the ransom. There's a lot of business people out there. I think, there's a lot of card carrying Americans out there who, just think fundamentally paying these criminals, these cyber criminals, a ransom is un-American. It's unpatriotic. Do you agree with any of that stuff? I mean, there's people out there that think that way.
I mean, if you remember back in the 1920s, you had, Joe Blow running a coffee shop and then the mob coming and saying, hey, you got to pay a monthly protection fee. And from there, if he didn't report it to authorities, every month they're going to come and collect the protection fee. But if you reported it and if you did things to prevent it, then, you would basically get rid of the bad guy. So I'm going to argue on this that they shouldn't pay the ransom.
Yeah, that's a great point. So like every penny, if you will, that's paid goes towards criminals and, helping them do more attacks. I'm sure some of it goes to Ferraris and homes and things like that, but this money is all going to criminals when you pay the attacks. But on the other hand, there are times, though, when businesses are caught totally unprepared, which if I had to guess how many businesses out there are prepared for a cyber attack, I would put it in the low teens. And that's because I'm in a really good mood today and feeling really generous. And that's just from my situation running across businesses. We never run into businesses that are fully cyber secure. And so here's the deal. Yes, you're right. Excellent point. But then if a business gets caught with a ransomware and they have no way back, they don't have, maybe they had backups, the bad guys deleted them. They don't really have a way back from an attack. It could be business ending if they don't pay the ransomware, even though there's no guarantee they're going to get all their data back. It could literally end their business if they don't get it back.
Right.
So
then you have the complexity of data exfiltration, double extortion on top of, like one reason a business would have to pay is because they don't have good cyber resiliency. So they have no way to get back up on their own, right? Bad backups. Because, you might have good backups, but you might just have a bad plan or a bad, bad plan, meaning you have good data, right? Backups, when we look at backups, at least from our standpoint, when we're talking about recovery, you're just recovering data, right? We're not recovering systems. But we go into situations a lot where we see companies trying to restore systems and not data. And in the process of doing that, they reintroduce the vulnerability back into the network, usually leading them to get hacked again. I think we just saw that with CDK, right? They tried to get back up and running quickly. Probably wasn't really well thought out because they didn't plan it out. They just did it on the fly, and boom, they got punched in the face because they thought they were like, hey, we're going to get back up out of this quick. This will be a 3-day event at most. And boom, they realized real quick, this is going to be a lot longer than 3 days.
Yep.
So, and again, it goes back to look, if you don't know what you don't know, if you're not going into, your incident response and your business continuity plan with the thought that like, here's what we have to do. We have to buy new systems. We have to, basically get our data down to the actual data, meaning data files, database files, not programs and software. That all has to be reinstalled after the fact, right? Not restored from a backup. People don't understand this, and they try to restore all this stuff from a backup, and then the next thing they know, they're getting hacked again, right? Because maybe it's not a vulnerability. Maybe the hackers put 17 different back doors in before they revealed themselves, and you're restoring these back doors every time you restore a backup.
Yep.
So these are all the things that come into play when you're doing recovery and you realize, oh crap, our backups, although they're good, although we can restore them, they're chock full of vulnerabilities that are going to lead us to get hacked again. So we can't trust them. So now we got to pay the ransom.
How many times have you been in conversations with potential clients? You're telling them all of this, stuff that's happening out there as it relates to ransom. And then they say, all right, I haven't been hacked in the last 20 years. And if I get hacked, I'll just pay it, But by banning the ransom, you're basically forcing them to invest in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. Which is what I started the conversation with.
Yeah.
She knows, the CISA director knows the state of businesses and their cybersecurity protections. And she's basically saying it's not an option. That's why she's saying it's not an option, because that is America's cybersecurity protection. The hackers will hit us and we will have to pay them to get out of it. That's basically what she's saying, because that's the status of where companies are at for them. Yes, I'm summarizing, but the majority of businesses are in that boat.
So let's just say you ban the paying of the ransom. CDK happens, 25% car dealerships go out of business.
Right.
I can guarantee you that people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't have that happen to me. I got to call one of these guys.
Well, not only that, Andre, that is such a big hack that's going to impact the economy that lawmakers are going to look around and go, we can't have an entire industry or a third of one whole industry shut down because of a cyber attack. We need to get this back up and running now.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And I think what Andre's trying to say is if we banned it, it would really suck for a while if we banned all ransomware payments, because a lot of people would be caught off guard, but that would make the news and maybe push people into getting cyber secure. We all know that the country of France has banned paying for kidnappings. They won't pay a ransom if you're kidnapped. And everybody knows, like, if a group of hostages get picked up overseas by some group and there's French people in there, a lot of times they just let them go because they're like, we're not going to get any money from the French. I'm not saying it works perfectly every time, but I think that's kind of where Andre's going with that, is it would suck for a while, but it would not be a way for them to make so much money, and maybe they would move on to something else.
So one argument too that we could make is, we're talking about who's paying, right? Who's really paying the ransomware at the end of the day? Who's paying it out?
I mean, if you really want to boil it down, it depends who gets attacked.
But the insurance company, right?
If they have insurance, yeah.
If they have insurance. So, if this argument or CISA says this is the way it's going to go, and, it's not banned and all this stuff is lifted, then I think eventually the insurance companies are going to be like, all right, well, this is our policy that we're never going to pay it regardless of what it is.
Well, we're already starting to see that, Andre. I mean, I told you, we talked to a company today who told us that their insurance policy just came back with a clause that said, if there's a social engineering attack, you're not covered. So basically, like, don't let your people be the reason you get hacked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not covering that. Like, we'll cover everything else. Like, if they break in through a vulnerability, if they bust in through a brute force or your firewall, we'll cover all that. But if your employees don't know what to do and you're not training them and you get hit with a social engineering attack. Now, I wasn't privy to the questionnaire that the company filled out. Maybe they said, we're not doing security awareness training. And then the insurance company saw that and said, well, we're going to put an exclusion in for that since they're not doing it.
You know, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's a good point. So anyway, keep going.
And the interesting thing is, like, you know, like, this company is a company that would certainly qualify for a lot more. And they're telling us they can only get $3 million in coverage. I don't know if that's just that insurance company, because I know you can get more than $3 million in coverage, or we're really starting to see these insurance companies lower the limits to ridiculous numbers to where if something bad does happen, it's really not going to help the business out. Like, you're going to have it, but you're still going to go under. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess kind of the thought that's coming together in my mind is, though, where do you draw the line on what is social engineering? Because
who gets to decide that, Randy?
The insurance company.
The insurance company.
Yeah, and most of your criminals aren't, I mean, obviously this is a thing, but they're not just scanning the internet looking for companies to hack. They're sending out emails.
Well, I think what they mean by social engineering, and I'll just, based on, my knowledge of situations, essentially, if you click on something and you let somebody in your system and they can prove that.
Exactly.
Or you're right. So whether that's a phone call, whether that's an email, a text message, if you respond to it and you invite somebody in, they're not paying.
I mean, that's like I have home insurance and my home insurance is saying we'll cover everything except burglary. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, no, it's not. It's saying we'll cover you for burglary unless you let the burglar walk in your house and take everything.
Which is how all attacks start when 95% or 94% of all breaches start with an email that's clicked on.
But I'm just saying, right? You're just thinking about homeowners insurance, right? And burglary insurance.
Well, yeah, that wasn't that great.
I open my door and say, come in and take everything. And then I call my insurance company up and say, hey, I just let this guy in my house and I told him to take everything. And now I want to file a claim that I was just robbed.
Yeah. It's like if you go down to the sack and pack,
right,
and you leave your 2024, Dodge Ram Hemi that cost $100K, running in the parking lot, and you go inside and you come back and your car's gone. Should your insurance company pay for that?
Well, they do.
Well, I know.
They do. Right. But that's the craziness with the world we live in with this stuff, right? You're literally, you're looking at a product sold by these companies that, they get to dictate the situation. They get to decide whether they're going to pay the claim or not. And they look for ways to not pay it all the time. And that's the name of the game with these insurance policies that are out there today. It's very easy for these guys to figure out ways to not pay it. But, we've talked about it. We've read it in articles, but I think we're starting to see the rubber meet the road here. I mean, we're talking about a fairly sizable company who's saying to us, we could only get $3 million in coverage, and that's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's right. That's going to be a problem for businesses. Well, guess what? That's going to force that business to do one of two things, Randy. Go seek out coverage elsewhere. Some other, bloke, that's the word you use, bloke insurance company that's going to write a policy to this company, or they have to improve their cybersecurity protections so they don't need to ever use that policy. And I think that might be what's at play here. I think we're starting to see the insurance companies push back a little bit on these businesses and say, we're not going to give you that kind of coverage because you're not really doing things the way you should be.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you can and you can't count on the insurance. I've heard a saying, it's a religious thing that says, pray like it all depends on God, but work like it all depends on you. Well,
I
let's
love
put that in cybersecurity. Get insurance like it all depends on the insurance company, but get cyber secure like it all depends on you, because you don't really know when they're going to pay out or not, you know? And yeah, they're thinking they're doing everything, you know, all in the best interest of everybody involved, or blah, 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 blah. But you might get hit with a thing that says, oh, we're not going to pay because you clicked on the email.
Here's the other thing that struck me when you said that, right? When you said that, what I immediately thought of was all these companies that for years and years, let's say I've been buying cyber insurance for 5 years, right? And I continue to show up and do my business every single day the way that I've always done it, right? I've been in business for 15 years, right? And now for the last 5, I got cyber insurance. We haven't really, we do some things with cybersecurity. You know, we have endpoint, we have some multi-factor, you know, we got enough to qualify for cyber insurance, right? At least, you know, that's what I told the insurance company when I filled out the application. Now we're at a point where these insurance companies are working with these companies and they're renewing policies, but they're sliding these clauses in, right? Mm-hmm. And some of the clauses that we're seeing are like limits on ransomware payments of like $500,000, right? And if you're not in tune to that, or your agent's not coming to you saying, hey, this year there's a, you know, just to show you on this policy, we're now limiting your ransomware payment to $500,000. So you're going to be on the hook if you have to pay anything more than that. Wouldn't you, A, want to know that, and B, you know, and a lot of times companies don't know this. Companies don't understand that, you know, and then one day they get hit with ransomware and they're asking for $5 million and they learn that the insurance company is only going to pay $500,000. Well, you got a lot of work to do to get that ransomware payment from $5 million to $500,000. It's probably going to be pretty much impossible. So
the American way, short-term fixes is going to lead to long-term failure.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, in other words, these businesses are going to get, you know, punched in the face real soon, because I think they're so used to cybersecurity being, or I'm sorry, cyber insurance being their cybersecurity. And that is no longer protecting them the way that it used to. And we're going to see how this plays out, because it's going to play out one of two ways, in my opinion. Insurance companies are going to put these clauses in, businesses are going to get attacked, and it's going to be a mess in terms of recovery. Or businesses are going to be aware of it ahead of time, and they're going to have no other option than to do more or accept the fact that they're going to get hacked.
Yeah, I just wish for like, we all come together like a kumbaya and just say, we're not going to pay. We're going to just stick it out. And then eventually the cyber criminals are going to find another job, you know, another illegal thing to do. But I don't know. And now, Brian, you did give a good example of I don't want to take your thunder on that, but you gave the example of the hospital and 100 miles, and what if, you know, they were closed?
Yeah. I mean, there's too many scenarios I could come up with to say that banning ransomware payments is just never going to be an option, right? And doing the right thing is never going to be what businesses do, right? I don't think you're ever going to get to a point where people say we're never going to pay. Look, when people's businesses are on the line, something that somebody has poured their blood, sweat, and tears in for 30 seconds, and you got millions, if not billions of dollars, you know, in your war chest. Somebody comes along and asks for $1 million or $2 million, and you can pay it. You're gonna pay it. You know what I mean? Like, if it's no thing for you, you can self-insure for that amount. And there's going to be businesses that get hit. So in other words, there's always going to be a market. There's always going to be an emotional buyer who's looking at losing everything that they've built in their life. Unfortunately, the three of us fully understand the emotional attachment that comes along with the businesses that we start and own and run, right? And that is something that comes into play when a business owner is dealing with this situation, right? They're literally watching not only everything that they built, but basically their hopes and their dreams and, their family. These are all things that come basically flashing before your eyes when you hear the words, "We got hit with ransomware."
Has there been, because we know, like, if the ransom group is a terrorist group or some type of thing like that, you're not supposed to pay. But has there been, and even if that law is on the books, has there been instances where the government actually now goes back and fines them for paying or penalizes them for paying?
Yeah, it hasn't happened in a while, but it has happened in the past where ransomware payments were investigated and it was determined that they, was sent to or potentially sent to a sanctioned organization. However, this is where the hair on the back of my neck stands up when I talk about the banking system. Once you're on this list, you can't. There's no mechanism for you sending money to these people. You kind of get what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, all right. So if I'm on the sanction list, there is no bank on the planet that will send me money because it's their butt on the line if I end up getting that money. Right? So if I'm a sanctioned person, there's no way, unfortunately, you're not driving the money in cash to me, right? You need other third parties to help you get that money from point A to point B. That's how it works. If I'm a sanctioned entity, those people that are helping you get that money from point A to point B won't help you. They're like, "Oh yeah, we can't move that money there." That's, we'll get in trouble for that.
Got it. Okay.
So unless you're planning on getting a Western Union and having somebody, fly a pigeon over to the hacker in Eastern Europe, there's no way that money is going to get transferred. So it'll get stopped because they'll be like, "Oh, this is going to a person on a sanction list. We can't send this."
Okay, because I know, like, here in Florida, if you're like a state agency or local government, you're not allowed to pay. But I'm not sure of instances where they kind of just look the other way. But yeah, it just sucks all the way.
Texas have that law too, Rainey? Are you allowed to pay in Texas?
I'm not sure if you're allowed to pay, but you are required to report.
So it's interesting. We'll see where this goes. But when you have the federal head of the CISA saying, like, there's no way ransomware payments can go away, at least right now. At the end of the day, it's simply because of what I always talk about is businesses are just not prepared for this stuff. And unless we want to see businesses go out of business to the point where it impacts the economy significantly, which is what would happen here. I mean, just think if, like, United Health couldn't get back up because they couldn't pay the ransom, or Ascension hospitals couldn't get back up and running because the government's saying you can't pay that, you can't do that. Yeah. Well, we can't recover any other way.
Right.
Or our recovery methods. Right.
Yeah. And everybody now would then go to Congress and go to their lawmakers like, how can you let this happen? It's only $3 million. Just let them pay it. So yeah.
Right.
So they can't win.
Yeah, and if they ever did consider it, there would have to be some kind of mechanism for an exemption or a waiver where, like, if you can prove, like, we have no other option, then you'll be allowed. But the government doesn't have the resources for that. We talked about it at the beginning of the call, right? They just hired 80-some thousand IRS agents to play catch up. What are they going to do? Establish something over here to audit businesses for their cybersecurity? No effing way in hell. You can't police people this much. At some point, businesses have to do the right thing. Just like everybody down in Florida, Andre, needs to have the proper insurance on their home and cars in case a hurricane rips through.
Same in
the whole, right. So the whole entire state doesn't end up footing the bill for people who weren't socially responsible and got insurance, right? And that's a thing down in
Oh no.
In Florida.
I don't have insurance. I'm going to get a bailout. I'm just going to take the risk.
Right.
But that's exactly what a business owner is saying, right? In a sense,
there's so many correlations between hurricane insurance and cyber insurance. It's not even funny.
But I will say, like, for example, my car, they offer flood insurance. I felt not to take the flood insurance, but we had a huge rainstorm 2 months ago, and a lot of cars got flooded, and they were just out and about. The rainstorm came, and their cars are done. Now we're shipping them to Texas and trying to sell them over there. But, so but it's a risk that we got to take.
I thought you sent those things to Cuba, not Texas.
Oh, well.
All right, guys. Thank you. Good discussion. Good talk. We'll see where this goes, but I don't think ransomware payments are going away anytime soon. Quite frankly, in the state of today's businesses, they should be something that is part of a business's business continuity plan, because you never know, right? It should be your last option, and all your other options should be tried, true, and tested. That's the goal of maturing your company. But while you're in the process of maturing, going from that, little boy to a teenager and then to a grown adult, you may have some issues along the way. And that's why the ransomware payment option still needs to be available. One day, Randy, we may have a world where businesses are protected enough where we can actually entertain this conversation. But I don't see it happening in my lifetime. And I probably have about 25 good years left if I'm lucky. So I don't see it happening in the next 25 years. It's not a priority. And until Microsoft and everybody else stops putting out crap, we gotta pick up the pieces.
Cyber criminals just text me and they said, "Thank you. Thank you, America."
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, that, just to mention that, I was going to talk about that on the show real quick. I've been following Lockbit pretty heavily lately, and our team here at Exact has been doing some threat intelligence on them at a deeper level. Dude, they're hitting everybody. Not just they're getting so many people around the world right now. It's not even funny. Like they're not just targeting the United States. They are hitting everybody around the world, and it's crazy how many companies they have under attack right now. And I have over 2,000 companies that they're under ransomware threat right now.
And I would say they're easier targets too, because they're probably bootlegging more and having unlicensed software that's not getting updates and stuff. These other countries. I'm not talking about third world countries. It's more.
They shut down the whole country of Indonesia.
Wow.
The whole country. Because they got the one system and shut down the whole country. I don't know. I read a story where they basically said, "Hey, we're giving you the keys. We're sorry." So, but I don't know. You can do some Google searches and see. But Lockbit has a ton of countries, companies, organizations under ransomware threat right now, and my head spun when I saw it. I was like, "Wow!" I'm like, typically U.S. companies are most highly targeted. This group has seemed to make a decision in the last couple of months to pivot and just kind of go after whoever they can, and try to do as much damage as they can. So I definitely disagree with the fact that their Federal Reserve thing was a last hurrah, we're going out of business type of attack. It was definitely probably more we thought we had the Fed, but we really only had this bank, and we made a mistake. So, all right, guys, time to get back to work. Thanks for the discussion, and we'll see everyone next week. Remember, share the show, or we're coming at you with ads.
See you.
Bye, y'all.
See you.